the curse position comes from working with clients who I found exhibited this feeling of misfortune, of perhaps describing themselves as feeling like the black sheep of the family, is a common phrase that comes up. And there is this misfortune that keeps returning in a sort of inexplicable, ineffable way. The person feels particularly singled out, and other people seem to be getting on with things quite reasonably happily and contentedly, and the person who is suffering from the cursed position feels that they are bad and they're wrong, and perhaps they're a burden to other people, and they keep doing things or finding themselves in particular situations that are really unhelpful to them. They feel that they're kind of being caught out by things, that they're unlucky, as I've said, um, and it just doesn't feel fair. And there's this kind of sense of injustice. But the way it keeps happening feels, basically like it's something supernatural. Like, how is, this feeling of like, how is it possible that this can continually keep happening to me? That there must be something about me or something within me that's wrong or bad that causes this, right? So I'm the problem, I'm wrong, I'm bad, and therefore I'm cursed. There's something awful. Um, and this, there's often, because there's often no sort of rational explanation for these things, and they seem to be these weird sort of kind of. I mean, Jung talks about this idea of synchronicity. These sort of weird sort of events that seem to conspire, and the person who feels that they're kind of cursed, ends up feeling bad, right? So so, in my work, I noticed that not in all cases, but in some of the cases where people told me this, they often had experienced relational trauma or developmental trauma. So that means some kind of neglect or abuse that caused them to feel in this way. And the thing is with trauma, as I'm sure many of you know, that it can't be recalled, it can't be remembered because of things like defensive things, um, such as dissociation, where you're splitting something off from your memory and it can't be recalled, or repression, where you're pushing something down into your unconscious, as Freud famously described. So these kind of defenses, they are useful because they keep the unwanted memories or feelings or sensations at bay. But it means that the they will come back in other ways, right? Because they're not watertight, metaphorically. So you may find that you have dreams or say flashbacks, nightmares, perhaps somatic sensations, intrusive thoughts or memories coming back, or indeed things like the situations I was talking about at the beginning. You may keep getting into trouble at work, for example, despite your best intentions, or getting told off for doing something. You might end up turning up late uh, on a regular basis, or finding it difficult to leave the house. And then when you arrive, other people are angry with you because you're not on time. And there's this feeling of injustice. You feel that people are being unfair because for you it feels like you can't leave, or that you're always late, or things conspire to make you late or to make you make mistakes at work, for example, that cause you to feel that you're cursed, right? So for you, it's this cursed position feeling coming back again, but for other people, they may be kind of just having a go at you, or sort of you experience them as being mean because they don't. You feel that they don't understand what it's like to feel this particular way. Okay, so this curse is very strange in a way. I mean, the way that Freud talks about this idea of the uncanny, which he describes as familiar and unfamiliar at the same time, and I think that that's the essence also of the cursed position, because you feel. I mean, Freud isn't talking about the uncanny from a traumatic perspective, whereas where I am from in terms of the cursed position, right? Generally, I'm speaking about trauma, especially in this particular video. So that's an important distinction to make. But nonetheless, both the uncanny and the cursed position share this collision of familiarity and unfamiliarity. Because, say, for example, when you're late for work or you make a mistake at work, and it's like, oh, here we are again. I've done this thing and I've sabotaged myself. I didn't need to do this. If only I'd thought about this more carefully. If only I hadn't acted impulsively, this would not have happened, right? So that's what feels familiar. But then also you may get something else, which is coming perhaps from the dissociation or the repression, where there's these early or unremembered traumatic memories or events that are kind of coming through, but they haven't really gained proper representation. They haven't been what we call symbolized in your mind so that they can be cut. So there's something that we can reflect on and think about. Okay. And that's what we do in psychotherapy. When we speak about these very difficult memories or events that happen, they then have a name, as do the emotions that go along with them, right? These very, very difficult experiences. But if we're only relying on dissociation or repression as defenses, which is often what traumatized people have to do because they don't have anywhere else to turn, and these can be very, very helpful at the time. But the thing is with those, the only ways that they fall short is that they can often feel that make us feel that we can't name what happened to us. There's something unnameable, and because it's unnameable, it then becomes something which is threatening and unfamiliar. Okay, it feels threateningly alien and unfamiliar, and so this confusion between something, this very familiar feeling, oh, here it is again, I've made a mistake, I'm late, combined with something like which feels quite aggressive and quite threatening and quite unfair, that feels more alien. This is what creates this sense of distortion, and this is really the essence of the cursed position. And this kind of distortion makes it feel that we're kind of, and this sense of injustice, that we're under attack, and the curse ultimately is a supernatural idea, isn't it? That there's this something, that somebody or something has a particular kind of power, as in the case of a witch who's cursing somebody. That's actually what it feels like, because the person who's suffering from the cursed position is caught in the midst of not knowing whether it's coming from inside them or from outside in the world, or outside beyond the world, as in the supernatural, right? So this is what creates this real sense of confusion and victimization. So this is very, very important. So there's something very, very familiar that we can't remember. Okay, but the familiarity only comes back through these repetitive compulsions. Another Freud reference there, this repetition compulsion. We keep doing these things because we're trying to kind of rid ourselves of the curse. But unfortunately, it doesn't go that way. That we, by behaving in a particular way, will just keep doing it until we can give this our experiences and name and understand why they happened to us and how they were part of our tapestry of growing up. And unfortunately, that might have involved something quite traumatic. So the reason psychotherapy can help is it, as I've said, is that it can help to name something. And once it's been named, it can therefore fit in more easily with our other memories, our other autobiography, if you like. It's something that can go on the shelves with the other books instead of being in a cellar somewhere. Okay. So now, in a cellar of the mind, as it were. So now, in and I think it's important also to speak about the archaic nature of this as well. There's something quite, because I think, with Jung, he speaks about, doesn't he? He talks about the archetypal nature of things. He talks about the collective unconscious, and I think there's something very archetypal about the curse. We all share quite an instinctive evolutionary fear of a supernatural attack. And if we look at the research of the historian Ronald Hutton, for example, in his book The Witch, he argues that this might actually be something that is universal. It's common to us all. And again, this particular fear is there at the heart of the curse position. So we might actually think, in certain cases, given how we experience ourselves this feeling of bad luck, where it keeps happening all the time, and there is this, you keep being late for work, keep using this example, or whatever, you might keep having accidents all the time, you might feel you're particularly accident prone. You may think, therefore, as you have this sense of being persecuted, but in a way that where there isn't actually, you can't actually find anybody to blame for this other than something very strange that appears to be coming from you. There may be situations where you start to feel quite paranoid, and that actually other people might have something in, other people might have it in for you, and they take a particular dislike to you. You might find that you're taking things quite personally, or that you feel quite envious of other people. You might go onto social media, which is a notoriously toxic place for these kind of feelings, where you might be observing other people and who appear to have these wonderful lives and feel quite envious. I mean, I think that's quite common anyway, beyond any ideas around the curse position. But nonetheless, this can be particularly acute when you feel this way. So, how about in terms of moving on or healing from this? And I think with the curse position, I think, as I've said several times now, it's very important to find a way of naming this and putting a name to the experience you've had, and to think about the ideas around intuition. Now, with the curse position, you feel that you're kind of weird, and you're fated to be always an outsider, as I said earlier, always the black sheep of the family. So one way of moving on from this is to think about intuition in a different way, because people who have experienced trauma, they often have this relationship to other people, which mirrors that which they had in their early lives, where they had to be very vigilant to what was going on around them. What are their parents going to do next? What are they going to say next? Sometimes it could be the environment can feel quite precarious. So you've always got to kind of watch what other people are doing, and you're concerned about what they might think about what you're going to do next. And you can really see how that connects to the this sort of cursed feeling later in life, because you feel that everything that you do is potentially wrong. And even if you are very, very careful about every single thing you do, you always feel that you're fated to get it wrong anyway. And I think that's what spans from something going on in early life to something happening when you're an adult. And so that's when you start to, as a child, you start to become over attuned to the needs and the wants of adults who are your caregivers. And so when you are an adult, you start to think that you're continuing this idea that you're kind of fated in a particularly supernatural sort of way to get things wrong and to continue doing that. So it's as if your intuition, which if you are a traumatized person, is likely, I would argue, to be more developed because of these early experiences you've had, if you see what I mean. But instead of using that intuition to worry in a hypervigilant sort of way about what somebody's going to say, what somebody's going to think about you, or what they're going to be doing next, you can harness that intuition perhaps to do something for yourself, to increase your sense of personal agency. So that would be through perhaps through creating something, through developing, so making a painting or poem, perhaps theatre. I don't know, any of the art forms, any ways that you might like to express yourself. It could be through, given your highly developed capacity to relate to others and to your intuition for sort of understanding what other people might be feeling, then, and this sort of, it can be this empathy which has kind of been a bit distorted. Then perhaps you can use that empathy for community work, to help others in some way, which can be particularly rewarding and useful. There's many ways that this kind of intuition can be helpful. Instead of turning into this idea, well, the universe has it in for me, and I'm just always going to be suffering. So I think that offers the person who's experiencing this cursed position hope. And that's where I'll end the video for today. Thank you.